Need another one. You gave me this one. Isn't it the 21 now? Got my other job. Okay, okay. Yeah, I'll give it to you. Let me put $100.
Meeting come to order. We have the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
George, could we have a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Bacchio,
Here.
Commissioner Rakowski,
Here.
Commissioner Neary, Commissioner Whitaker, Michael Pierce, Lisa Catania, and myself, George Needles, present.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Upper Chichester Township Board of Commissioners Caucus meeting, February 3rd, 2022. Before we get started tonight, it's our honor tonight to have a presentation and swearing in the officer Brian Gilmore for the position of Sergeant in the Upper Chichester Township Police Department. Judge, all yours.
I, your name. I will support, obey, and defend the United States, the Constitution. On behalf of the board, I'd like to present you with Sergeant. Oh, okay. Rank higher. Yeah, thank you very much.
You want to take some time? You want to take some pictures? We'll give you a few minutes, if Brian. You guys sure you don't want to stay? Okay, thank you for all that. And now, before we begin with the citizens' comments, we have another presentation tonight. We're going to do that after for the citizens' comments after the presentation, in case any comments. I have another presentation of the land development application for 464 Conchester Highway. Duncan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So much for taking the time tonight. For you should have a resolution for conditional approval for this project. We have 12 conditions, and our intent is to comply with all of them. 5 of which we've already showed compliance with, and we have gone through the required land development submissions, received conditional approval from the Planning Commission back in December, and we're hoping for recommendation for conditional approval. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we are proposing to install a drive-through only Dunkin' facility located at 464 Conchester Highway. Like I said, the facility will be drive-through only. There's going to be no indoor seating of any kind. We have obtained a few zoning variances from the zoning hearing board last year for parking counts and for the minimum required side yard setbacks. We are in compliance with the subdivision and land development ordinance of the township, and we are in compliance with the stormwater management ordinance. We are proposing landscape improvements. We have a sound attenuating fence along the eastern property line to prevent sound from affecting the neighbors, in addition to the landscape improvements. And if you could scroll to the down 2 pages. This is our drainage plan showing our proposed stormwater management improvements. We're proposing amended soils and an underground detention basin. As you can see in the lower left corner of the site, those sort of small squares. And we also have an application in with PennDOT for a highway occupancy permit. Chester Water Authority is extending public water service to the site. And if you could scroll down to the next page, that shows our landscape plan with the buffering trees, the required number of shrubs, and street trees proposed along the right of way.
You said Chester Water, how about sanitary sewer?
Yes, we have sanitary sewer service as well.
One question, you know where they have the 2 water points? There's 2 aisles to go in. What's is it one, they do one at a time, alternating? Because I'm worried about the traffic conflict.
Right, yeah, so we conducted a traffic impact analysis for the site by a registered traffic engineer. And the site is also proposing a deceleration lane within Conchester Highway. So we'll have
I'm not worried about the highway. What I'm worried about is where
within the
where
site.
the order is, because I don't want 2 people pulling out at the same time into one lane.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so the double drive-through is intended to provide faster service and be able to have turnover quicker through the drive-through. So it actually reduces backup into the site, having 2 speaker menu boards. But yes, it's essentially designed to have one person go through and then another, and it's sort of like as you progress down, circle around the top of the site and then come back down to pick up your order.
Have anything, Nicole? I have a question, because I know that was brought later into the plan. the Chester Water agreement with the water line extension. Was there any residents on that extension that did not have water, and are they offered to tie in at that same time? Do you know?
So currently, domestic water service ends right at our southeastern property line. So the residents to the east of us already have domestic water service. And so Chester Water is proposing to extend the main halfway through our property. So it's only about an 80-foot extension of the main.
And there's no residents to be able, with that 80 feet extension, or you're aware of anybody that,
That's up to Chester Water. They would have to extend that and offer that to the other residents. There's been no.
I don't think there's anything else left there.
on that one side? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's nothing until you get past. What's that street called?
Je-
Jeffrey.
Jefferson.
Jeffrey.
Okay. Well, we're gonna open it up to the, since this is a presentation, open up to the citizens' comments, but we have to go online also on the phone. So I'm going to make the announcement for that. We'll give them a few minutes since the Board of Commissioners have already, or if there's any, Lisa, do you have anything?
No, I just, we can talk about the resolution during my report. There are some items that I'd like to discuss.
Okay. So we'll have citizens' comments, if you could stay here for a few minutes yet, who are not able to attend the meeting in person. They make a comment during this time by dialing 571-748-4021 and entering 181-187-931 as your code. So unmute your phone, dial *6. After unmuting your phone, state your name and address and begin your comment. You will be given 2 minutes to speak and then place you on hold on mute. As I said, you could call on 571-748-4021 and enter in the code 181-187-931 pound and unmute your phone by *6. We'll give it a few minutes on this one. Make note, there was no citizen comment for the presentation of the land development application for 464 Conchester Highway, Duncan. The residents in the audience? No comments from the meeting tonight here in person? Everybody's good? That would conclude the presentation for Duncan. Thank you.
Thank you.
We would open up our caucus meeting for February 3rd, 2022. We will open it back up for the caucus meeting for the Board of Commissioners. For the citizens' comment, to be dialing in at 571-748-4021 and entering 181-187-931 pound. You unmute your phone, dial *6. Phone number to call in is 571-748-421 and enter in 181-187-931 #. Unmute your phone by dialing *6, and we will be given a few minutes here to take comments from the citizens. Note that we had no citizens' comments by phone. We'll open up to citizens' comments in the audience tonight. Any citizens' comments out there on the left side? No comment tonight either. We're moving along. We'll move on to our township professionals. We'll start out with the Catania engineer for the engineer report.
Thank you, Mr. President. You do have a copy of my report. The first thing that's on my agenda is the 464A Conchester Highway Land Development Resolution. That resolution was discussed briefly during the presentation for the Dunkin' Donuts Chichester. This property currently has an old auto repair shop on the site that is being demolished, and associated with that, with the development, there'll be a 969 square foot commercial building and the associated improvements. Most of those improvements happen to be paving and stormwater management. Because of the paving, there is a PennDOT highway occupancy permit that's required. You note the fire marshal in our office requested that there be turning movements shown on the plan so that we're sure that all vehicles can go through the site, so there is fire protection. As well as we heard, Chester Water Authority will be extending the water line to service the building, mainly because of the fire safety issues that we presented. There will need to be a zoning, there will need to be notes placed on the plan concerning all of the zoning conditions that were placed on the property at the time of the zoning hearing. The Delaware County Planning Commission was very adamant in their comments regarding residential buffering, the site lighting. So the site lighting has been taken care of, so there'll be no lighting that goes beyond the property line that would affect the adjoining property owners. PennDOT's requested, as well as Delaware County Planning, to get the adjoining property access. The driveways currently now are adjoined, and how that's going to take, what procedures they're going to utilize, because this will be an individual driveway, although the existing adjoining driveway will remain. So there's some of that still needs to be resolved, but I'm sure it will be. We're waiting for the Pennsylvania Sewage Facilities approval or the exemption approval. We've not received that as of yet. There will be a fee in lieu of open space in the amount of $2,000 for this project. And obviously we'll have the typical stormwater management, developers agreement, municipal security agreement for the project. I know Commissioner Bacco asked about SDCA. They did a review of the latest plan. There are some comments that need to be revised on the plans, and they'll have the approval of Southern Delaware County Authority. There are two waivers that are being requested. As you know, we have separate preliminary and final submissions. They're asking that this be considered as a preliminary/final submission, so that waiver is on there as well. They weren't able to get the infiltration, the percolation on the site to do all of the stormwater water quality. So they're asking for a waiver of that. They have provided alternative method, and I believe it's 200 and I'm going by memory, it shouldn't, 274 cubic yards of flow for the 2-year storm that they cannot mitigate. We have left it in our review letter that it's up to the board whether you want to see any sort of fee in lieu of that particular waiver. So otherwise, that's all I have for the Conchester Land Development Resolution. I also have in the packet, in your packet, the Traffic Signal Maintenance Resolution. You'll hear this as a TSMA. PennDOT back in 2020 had put together a new traffic signal maintenance agreement. You're currently under a traffic signal maintenance agreement for all the signals that are currently in operation in community. However, they've changed some of the language in their agreement, and they are requiring that each municipality that has signalized intersections enter into this new agreement. So I have a copy of the agreement. Unfortunately, I was working from home today. I couldn't get it into an email, but I will get that into an email. You'll have that before the meeting next Thursday. The resolution is in your packet, who would authorize the signatures. As far as stormwater projects, we have all of the survey work done for Tara Circle. I am actually going to meet with Commissioner Baiaco and Puck to talk about priorities, getting a list together for priority projects so that it can be taken to the board and you can determine what projects you'd like to see move forward. The thermoplastic marking project is out for bid. The advertisement is out, and we're expecting that back. I think it's the 15th of February, and we'll have that for the next Public Works meeting. Otherwise, I can report general progress. I'm sorry, a couple other things. Community Development Block Grants, 2 of the grant applications went in. Your Green Light Go grant went in, was submitted, and the flood plain, not the flood, hazard mitigation, there's too many of them. Hazard mitigation grant, I helped George get that finished, and that's been submitted. That's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I have one only because I was coming home this way tonight. Right in front of the church on Chichester Avenue, across from the Wawa, somebody's already taken the sign down, on the divider. So I don't know. I don't know whose responsibility that is.
Right now, I sent an email to Provco advising them that sign was damaged. They have a maintenance bond or a maintenance agreement for the year. Don't know whether or not they'll be doing it. PennDOT has not done their final inspection as of yet for their escrow release or their bond release. So I know that there are some items that PennDOT still needs to be completed along Chichester Avenue and Meeting House. There's some puddling that wasn't exactly resolved appropriately. So last I talked to Clem, I think that'll probably be on the list. To your point, Al sent to me yesterday the TE 160, which is the application for the flasher that will be put on the sign. So we'll have a little bit more of a notification to the vehicles as they're going through there.
All right, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Now, if that's a reportable accident, I mean, that we could go after the insurance company if we end up having to pay for it, if their bond doesn't pay for it?
I don't,
Only if we
I-
have an accident
If we
report.
have an actual witness in a report.
Because this is actually the second time it's found already.
yeah.
Unfortunately. Any other questions before we move on? I have a few here, real quick ones. Your number 2 for the waiver, the 2-year storm and all that. We know we had a storm just last year or the year before. With 2 hours, we had like 4 inches of rain. I mean, you're satisfied with this one? Did it not perk over there, or is it just, do we have drainage issues already in that whole area, or the PennDOT does?
There are drainage issues down in that area. We're hoping that with PennDOT's work that we won't have those anymore. Under the requirements, they're meeting as much as they can do that the property can yield, the soil can yield. However, there are other methods that could be utilized, or we could ask for a fee for that commensurate part of the project, if you would want to do that.
So they've met,
They've met to as much
is,
as can be justified on the site.
okay. The other thing was your PennDOT traffic maintenance resolution. How much of a difference to what we have now, and how much more responsibility are we going to be put on?
I can't answer that because I don't have a copy of the old maintenance agreement. We'd have to try to find one of those. My understanding from Steve Galt, who actually is the gentleman from PennDOT traffic signals in Harrisburg, that it's just language changes. So it might be prudent for the solicitor to take a look at it before the meeting.
Okay.
I haven't compared it to the previous one because it was many, many years ago that we entered into that. It is very consistent with the other maintenance agreements that we've been entering out with the language that's in it. And I'm not sure if you remember what kind of spurred this a couple of years ago. It kind of got lost in the translation of COVID. But there was a big push by PennDOT for municipalities to ensure that they were maintaining their traffic signals. There's a lot of very old traffic signals out there. Like housekeeping on their part.
Any other questions for the engineer? We'll move on to the solicitor, Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have a copy of my report in the file. It was brought to my attention that there are some conflicts between our current snow removal ordinance as well as the property maintenance code, excuse me, that we've adopted. I'm going to take a look at those and make any revisions that we need to. It was mostly dealing with timeframes for removal and the width of the path for the removal. So we'll make sure that those are consistent. My understanding is that there will be 3 extensions for various land development projects, including 900 Township Line, 4800 Chichester Avenue, and 3033 Market Street Extension. Excuse me, there are no other real action items that need to be addressed by the board, but I tried to give you an update of the various projects that I've been working on. We're hopefully winding down with the issues that are outstanding on Somerset, and once we get squared away, we'll be ready to move forward on that.
You're just going to answer before I even ask.
Yeah, I know, because I knew it was coming. That's why I put it in the report. So we're making progress on that, and we're doing what we can, and hopefully things will get moving, and they'll be ready to start to roll on that project. I wanted to thank Keith Crowley for doing a good job on the Bishop matter for property, which was a property maintenance issue that had been ongoing for an extended period of time. She was a senior citizen and was having a lot of difficulty maintaining the property, and he was able to go in, and we've been able to get the family involved in that. He was very satisfied with the cleanup process, but he did a nice job interacting with the family and trying to get things squared away on what had been a problem ongoing for probably multiple years. So I just wanted to commend him for that. He did a nice job in getting that all squared away. Other than that, everything is pretty much in order. It's outlined in the report, but there's no additional action.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the solicitor?
I was gonna cover the board that me and George have spoken. I talked to Mike.
I just have the usual two. Have we taken any further steps with the Luongo property, and what are the next steps with the Burkle?
Rosales and Burkle, that's the easy one to answer. Scheduled for a hearing in April. I know that Lisa has a copy of the proposed changes that they have indicated. Once we get her agreement and or approval on that, we will forward that on to the Burkle property owner to make sure that they are going to comply. And there is also some recommendations for the folks down on Eric Drive that need to comply with some changes and some issues down there that will hopefully alleviate a lot of the issues. But we are on top of that. I think we're a lot closer. I know that Rosales has completed his aspect of it. At least that's my understanding of it. I've seen pictures. So.
Well, then, can you tell Mike and Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
And
And then,
that was my anticipation. I knew that they were
but I'm
on
still getting complaints from people further down area.
there. And some of that is self-imposed, with all due respect and candor. So we'll see what we can do. And on the Luongo, I have to see where that is, because I was waiting. I think Keith was doing some confirmation about status of the various appeals that were made and whether fines were paid. And I will follow up with him.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I have a question about item number 11. Is there specific language or anything specific in number 11 regarding remote attendance at meetings? Draft for remote participation in
Yeah,
regular.
I'm gonna have a resolution prepared for that so that we have some operation,
We're gonna lay out like some
some
guidelines.
ground lines. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
No other questions for the solicitor? We will go to the manager's report.
Good evening, everybody. The first item I have are some escrow resolutions. We've received a request for release to the former alternate engineer for the Clover Development Project. This is release one, releasing about half of the amount of letter of credit for that project. We have had some issues with that project that is currently shut down. You have an escrow release for Buckley Cable Construction Company. This was a pretty simple $225 release for a street opening permit, which has been verified that everything is good to go there. Did not make it into the packet because it came in late this afternoon, but we also have another fire escrow to release. The one over on Cherry Street. The address is escaping me right now, but that's all satisfied, cleaned up. So we'll have that in the packets for you. It's the time of year again to apply for our county aid. So we have our resolution for our county aid. Last month, we discussed a little bit about the township debt situation. I was asked to give an update. So in your packets, there's a debt summary. And so I kind of walked just through it at a high level here. On the left are the different notes. This does not include the bonds out for the post-retirement health care or the pension funds. This is our standard debt. The left-hand side, there are the 4 current notes that we are carrying. The next column is the balance as of 1/1/2022. Principal payment and our interest payment for 2022, 23, 24, 25, and 26. As you can see, there's different time frames that the final payments are due for these. And then it gives you a breakdown of the total overall principal and interest rate on that, and then the interest remaining on the far right. The interest remaining is effective as of 1/1/2023. The first column there that you see, 2022 principal and 2022 interest, is what's budgeted for this year. And those assumptions there for that interest is that the payments would be made in accordance with the current payment structure. So, for instance, the note 2018 TD Bank, our 2022 principal payment is $250,000, and the interest that we would accrue throughout the year would be $24,000 on that. So if the payments are accelerated, we would pay significantly less in the interest there. So I mapped that out for you there. The next item is we have some discussion about the Harpa Funds. So the Treasury Department put out their final rule. So I have in your packets, I have a little summary that we can walk through now, and then as well as a presentation that I attended the other day from Campbell Durant PC through the Pennsylvania Municipal League discussing this American Rescue Plan Act. So we received our first distribution. It was just under 900,000. That was received last year. That went into a interest-bearing account at Pliget, and a accounting fund was set up for for those monies. Last year, we were authorized to pay COVID response bonuses to the employees. That happened in the final payroll. That ate up a very small portion of the funds. There's about 830,000 still in the account. Just in January, I don't know if it was prior to our January meeting or right around the date of our January meeting, the final rule was released from the Treasury, and out of that, 400 and some pages, the presentation's knocked down to 53. What I saw, the most key development was that the Treasury looked at it and said that they would like to allow a $20 million deduction for municipalities that did not have significant loss of revenues. So previously, there was a calculation in there where you could use a percentage and say, hey, you can factor that your revenue should have grown by this amount each year. And if it didn't, you can use that number in there, and then that's going to be able to help you utilize those funds. Or here's this other convoluted process that you could go through for all these other different things. So everything that I'm going through is recommending for municipalities our size to really explore this $10 million deduction. And the key information about that is on pages 4 to 7. Now, that has passed in the House, and it is expected to pass in the Senate under the State, Local, Tribal, and Territorial Fiscal Recovery, Infrastructure, and Disaster Relief Act. But even though it is in the final rule, it is not 100% guaranteed at this point that this is going to be how we can use the funds. It's highly likely, not guaranteed. So we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. So what I did was I kind of just conceptually went through some of the in my head. If this is the easiest way to use the money from an administrative perspective, from a what you can spend it on perspective, was to go with this assumption of the $10 million deduction. And from everything we hear, that looks like this is bipartisan is going to go through. So I came up with some recommended action steps based off of some of the emails and some of the requests I've seen. So I would recommend that we prepare to spend the funds using the $10 million deduction, which would allow the township the greatest flexibility in spending. In 2022, the conceptually what I believe should happen is that to engage the department heads as well as all the elected officials here to provide expenditures that have either been delayed, passed over time due to budget constraints, or just are in general a wish list. We'd like to get this done. Put them all together in a list and allow us to kind of get some cost estimates together, some kind of like real dollars, what it would cost to do it up front, and if there be any ongoing expenses related to it, kind of what that looks like. Sometime in 2022 and leading into 2023, form a committee to review all that information and prioritize the requests. It would make sense to kind of do this during the budgeting process because some things may be things that you could float into the budget or pull out of the budget. Once that's vetted through the committee, complete some type of community outreach survey that could be done through like an online survey, it could be done through paper surveys, it could be done through house, where these planned expenditures are kind of communicated out to the public and we're soliciting feedback. It would be a good exercise for the department heads to really be able to sell some of their wish lists as to why, and buy-in from the community. And then based off the timeline of when these monies would be used the years 2023 and 2024 to expend most of the funds. I say expend most of the funds because in the event that an emergency need comes up in the amount in the meantime, that you're accessing. But something that we've talked about a couple times. We are in need of a new roof township building. And then in 2025, reconcile and complete all the final reporting necessary steps, including the audits. Through the township and utilized for the constant recovery from COVID. And that you should be receiving your newsletter in the mail any day now if you haven't already. Tax bills, my understanding is that they have gone out. So you should be receiving your tax bills in the near future, and a lot going on right now.
Okay, thank you for that, George. Wanted that for tonight to open up the discussion because we've known about this money. We've talked about a lot of things. So if there's any comments with the board tonight, we have a step-by-step plan. The only quick point I would have on the ARPA would be, I know we talked about it, but I never saw a final list or even tried to vet out who would get a bonus for the COVID. You said on your top part, you said you already gave it out in 2021, the last payroll. All I know is we talked about it. No, I'm just saying we talked about it, but I've yet to see action taken on it. It was brought up in an email, and then
Yeah, so so that was that last discussion is the group of individuals who worked for the township during COVID, but were no longer, how could it be?
well, if the employees got it 2021, was that added in their payroll, or was that a separate check? That would have to be a separate check and then tax, wouldn't it, or no? Because don't we have to have the I's and the T's dotted and crossed and everything for this money?
Yeah, so the final payroll, there was what was put in was a COVID bonus payroll code. And when we tied back to what that would, the amount with the transfer from the COVID account over to the payroll account to pay it. So we have a register of all the employees, the amount that was distributed back to the account. So from accounting perspective, everything is clear.
Was that a separate check even though they took taxes out? See, I got a bonus too, where I work, but it wasn't added to my normal paycheck. It was a separate thing in tax as I was taxed. Did we do it that way, or did you add it into the paycheck?
I'd have
that
to
we-
go back to 6 to 1, half a dozen. I'd have to go back to look to see what the mechanism. Sometimes when we pay the bonuses, like when the police get the holiday pay, we separate it as two checks. But from a payroll register perspective, it gets all rolled up into one as like process or payroll reports. So even if it was processed as I would have to look to see if we processed as additional payroll. I know we set up a pay code to track it, so we have a COVID pay code in there, so that all of that is tracked, and then it would, that bonus will get taxed.
Right. So, well, then my next thing would be is not wait for the 2020 when the COVID was here, even though some employees are not here or situations happened during 2020. On the miss, do we have that list ready to go for later discussion? Like who they may be, yes. for the
Yeah, so
board.
that was all provided in that email chain.
I didn't see a damn name. Mine. Go through my emails, I didn't see a darn thing. I'm just saying.
Item was, well, that I recall was based around, we had an employee who passed away during that time. So the question was, how does that? Because I guess you'd have to do like an any and all, right? Decided that you wanted to compensate that were through that time. So that would that would be the biggest question I would have. How would we compensate?
The state. Yeah. Can I get that list, George? I don't recall seeing any of those names, sorry. And the other thing on, real quick one on your bonds, which one of these reflect the, remember the street lights when we went out and got a bond? Is that one of the TD ones?
It's B. It's the third one down.
Third one down? That's the balance of what
Yeah.
we took out from,
Yeah,
when
so-
we started the street lights?
Yeah, 1 and 2 are refinances of this building. B, so the third one down is the streetlight project. 18 was the money that we borrowed for the matching grant money for Conchester Avenue Streetscape project.
Right.
And
Anybody else have any questions? The ARPA update and the bonds and everything? I know we have to start acting on this sooner than later, but
Yeah, I'll talk more about it under my report. I would just add that I think that's a good timeline, a good plan of action, going forward. I'm glad that they did come up with a blanket kind of any funds under $10 million. You don't necessarily have to prove that you had a loss in revenue because they want municipalities to actually spend the money. Most places have been sitting on it because their intermediate ruling was like from 1950 something, and you couldn't determine what you could and couldn't do with it. So this makes it a lot easier and allows us to have a lot more flexibility in what we need to do in the town. And I would say that I know we apply for grants and different projects, but also look at some engineering maybe costs and things projects that we need to do that would have long-term benefits for everybody, for the town.
anybody else? Move on to our commissioners' reports. Start out with Madam Vice President Cole Whitaker.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Um, My eyes are getting bad. I don't have to wear prescription glasses yet, but wear magnifying glasses. Um, so we applied for, thanks to the team here, George, Lisa, applied for $1.5 million in grants during the month of January. So we will keep you posted on how those grants are decided. The Recreation Board met and discussed an increase in rental fees. Believe you all have a copy of that in your packet. The recommendation is for the community center to go up to, for non-residents, to $650. Residents would increase $50 to $450. Nonprofits would increase from 100 to 150. Those rates are not available on weekends. And then the Upper Chichester Township employees would stay the same at $50. The field house, again, these are all full day rentals. We've discussed doing, setting it for a certain number of hours, but we don't have the staff to do that right now. So these are full day rental rates. Here at the field house is currently $750 without concession. We're asking that to be increased to $950. Full day with concession is $950. We're asking that to go to $1,150. And they do have the half day here at the field house, so that would go from 400 to 500, and the max for that is 4 hours. Again, nonprofits would go from 100 to 150. The hourly rate currently is $45, to increase that to $50. And the municipal fields, the fields would be $50, which is no increase. Seasonal spring rentals, spring, fall, and summer, $450 right now, an increase of $650. So review that and then provide any feedback or questions. I know Brian did look up rates at neighboring municipalities, and our rates currently are lower than anyone else's, and these rates that he is increasing, that he's recommending to be increased to, are still lower than neighboring municipalities. Any questions about that? So now we go to the library. The library has, you all received the email. They had, I believe it was Heavens, law firm, sponsoring and paying for this, sort of like thermometer, to support the new library. And we were proposing to put it in Gibbon Park area as a temporary location, but it would be to mark the monies that's raised. You know, a copy of that also in your packet. They have someone right now, they're on hold. They're waiting to hear back from the board about the location. They're going to go and visit the site to make sure that, to go and check out the site to do an assessment before it's installed. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Shortly before the meeting tonight, I got an email from Betsy Barnes, the director of the library, and she indicated that Legacy Sign would be out there to check it out. And they were talking about digging. Wanted to make sure they did their 811 call. Yeah. So I wanted to tell Betsy to have George available, because I don't want any digging at Gibbons Park. They have to find a way to anchor it in such a way that it, is.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't think when she said that, I was like, okay. And I knew we were meeting tonight so we could discuss it. I was thinking that it was going to be on some sort of stand or podium with, again, anchoring into the ground, but not digging.
I want to clarify that.
Yeah, my biggest concern, I think we need to run through Mike and Lisa, is so a couple things with the park. So have we accepted, like, is it ours yet, or is it still the responsibility of Opco? And then after we do accept responsibility, we still have been trying to work with PennDOT to flush ownership of things. So I just don't want to get into like public.
So what's the timeline for that? Okay. And when's the meeting? And when's the meeting? Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
My only concern is let them put a sign.
Okay, that was what I was going to cover under my report, which was the question is to establish parameters for outside organizations advertising at Gibbons Park. Because I don't want it to be, I don't want a host of organizations coming in and then we make a month-by-month determination. I want a policy so that we have it clear, so that there are no, whatever we come up with.
I have
we
no
need-
problem with them
I
putting
understand.
signs to the town, nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm just.
I mean, I understand.
Things are, is everybody, well, let the library put a sign.
I understand.
That's
I
my
understand.
concern.
That's why, that's why under my report, and when I sent the email out, I said, we need to establish parameters as to what the guidelines are for who gets approved for it, who doesn't get approved for it.
How big?
How long. how
Right.
big. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
think
this
we
one
should.
now, in your package, it'll indicate that the parameters are, it's 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, 5 3/4 inches deep. If anybody wants to see a color picture of it, I have it here on my phone at least.
Yeah.
It looks like it's nicely done and everything, but once again, as you said, I want to have clear parameters as to who.
Well, I think I know what Joe's saying. I know what everybody's saying. Are they planning more than one sign? Like, I'm just saying, with the punch list, we still haven't gotten finished yet. Are they planning to put one over by Kingsman Road, since we already own the property there too, just to see, hey, how's this going to be mounted, or they're just looking for one sign?
No, it's one sign and it'll stay there.
Okay. I mean, you
Yeah,
get a better,
it's a really nice, it's
Right.
heavy, so it's only one, it's one
Right.
sign.
you get a better idea, I think, once we call PA1 call, that where the utilities are, we may not be able to put it where we would like to put it, and maybe just
But
dedicate one
also-
certain area.
But I also think that we shouldn't be digging, period, because it is going to move at some point, right? It's
Right.
going to move over to Kingsman, so it should be a temporary location. And we're using the word digging. We don't know what that means. Maybe they're digging to put the anchors in. I don't know.
Right.
Like, we don't know. But I do agree that we should have some sort of parameters around that. People may ask, but it's the board's decision to, once we take ownership of it. But we should have some parameters around it. Which leads me to my next thing that I was going to say. If there's anything else about
You
the
have
sign,
anything
go
with
ahead.
it, Lisa?
Go ahead.
Site,
Right. Right. So we do need, to probably take a visit out there with, the engineer, George, and or someone from the library and the company that's installing it.
You may need to have like a building permit on file too, depending, because if it's, something that, structure that large, you may have to.
Yeah.
Foundation.
Sign permit. Okay.
So I'll send Betsy a message tonight that she should call you in the morning, George.
Thank you.
anything else on your report?
So yeah, so the other thing that I wanted to discuss regarding the library is that they are right now they have $700,000 in pledges. The state rep Craig Williams has been working with the library to secure the RCAP grant. He wants the library to have $1 million before he goes and ask for additional money. Himself and Senator Kane, is it Kane? So the two of them have been working together to try to get the library this ARPA funds, excuse me, the RCAP funding. And so they have $1 million. So what I'm asking the township to do is commit to providing the library with the additional monies that they need to reach the $1 million mark. And that money can be paid out over a 5-year period. So for example, if you commit to $200,000, whatever, we can split it up to like $50,000 a year for the next 5 years. Right? And that money, we would only be committed to that money if in fact they received the grant. So if they didn't get the grant, then we wouldn't, then anyone that's committed to supporting the library financially wouldn't, because they wouldn't have the grant. So I want the board to consider that, because it is budget time, and this will be I think they're going to end up having 3 rounds of ARPA because the state had so much money. They're going to have 3 rounds of funding, and so the library did not get the first round, but they're still they still have an opportunity to get the second or third round of funding.
When is that date? Coming up for not having a pledge for them.
I don't know, Joe. I had to get off the library meeting earlier. Then do you have that? Decision is March.
Dawn indicated in her report that there's another RCAP grant, RACP grant, coming in February, but I believe.
Right. So they need it sooner. They need it like ASAP. So, yeah, buy the popcorn, right? But yeah, we so just consider that. I'm gonna ask to ask the board to consider that, and let me know if you have any questions or.
George, would the pledge be out of the ARPA that we have? Is that a possibility or no? Like she's saying, you're pledging, but you only say you pledge a 250, it's 50,000 for the next 5, but they have to get the grant. You pledge 250 out of that ARPA for the library?
Right.
What would happen if you do all that and they don't get the grant? Does that mean that money that we pledge has to go back to
You wouldn't,
your unused ARPA or whatever?
right.
Just very briefly, look at your PowerPoint here.
I watched
Um,
3.
It says the final rule reconfirms that as long as an obligation has been incurred by December 31st,
So
the
2026.
payment can be made through December 26th. So
Right.
you did 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 5 years.
You would
And that's
squeeze
just
right
a-
in as long as the pledge is done before that date. Yeah.
Right. It has to be committed by 2024. It has to be spent by 26. But what George is saying is that I'm just giving you a scenario,
Right.
right? I'm just saying that you can pledge it over a certain amount of time. If they do get it, the township can give the lump sum as well, right? So there's different scenarios. And George is saying you could use it out of our general fund and use and identify something else to reimburse, to pay back from the ARPA money. So essentially, yes, it would be covered. Right? Go ahead.
When my interpretation of that encumbered rule, my interpretation of that encumbered rule was like entered into a binding contract, like that type of stuff. Like we've secured the contractor to do the project and we've agreed to pay them for the cost of it. So I
Right.
would say that do it path of least resistance. Use it for middle schools.
That's why I wanted it all out tonight. Hey, you have anything else?
No,
Ms.
that's it
Whitaker?
for that's oh, I'm sorry. What is it? Oh yeah. I'm sorry about that. Let me the conference. So we have the spring conference coming up on March 20th. Right, yeah, March 20th. Um I did attend the state executive meeting last month. The president is still working on a list of legislative priorities. We had 8, and they're working to revise it. So as soon as the legislative priorities are sent out, I'll share that. The annual conference, as you know, we're partnered with, I think it's been 2 years now, going on 3, partnered with PML. So the conference this year, each year now, it's going to be in October, like the first week in October, and it'll be in Pittsburgh this year. And it'll be in Pittsburgh, and then so the state spring conference that we haven't had in 2 years will be March 20th. You all should have received George's email about that. That's going to be at Anthony's in Springfield. So let George know if you want to attend. We're still working on the menu. Once we get that out, then George will send it to you and ask you what your menu items are. Right, exactly. Anything else? Anything else? Oh, yeah. Well, that's just 10. The fire that we had on Beeson, Tom Bonnage, he is requesting a handicap parking placard to be placed outside of his house. I think he's on oxygen. So the only thing, we like to do the handicap spots when they request them. The only thing is that, anyone can park there. It's not their own spot, but yeah, I'll just recommend the board approve that handicap spot next week.
Now,
See.
is this a
Uh-huh.
spousal thing for the 20th?
Yes. Changed the name a few years ago, but
Right.
Yep.
Better half. I
And
mean.
that's open to like any, township officials, engineer, solicitor. I'm sure Mr. Pierce may be there. He's a part of the organization. George. Right. Exactly. Oh. Oh yeah, no. Yeah. Okay. So Yep, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything to be brought to Nicole's attention? We'll move along with Commissioner Neary.
Thank you, Mr. President. The administration and finance bills, list of bills and financials will be available next week. We obviously had the swearing in of Sergeant Gilmore this evening. I congratulate him on his service and appreciate all the police department does for us. We touched on it briefly, the parameters. I could start writing them up if you want, and hit them.
For the,
I
for
just,
the sign.
for the signs in Gibbons Park. I don't want it to become
Right.
a junkyard.
Right,
if
and I
you
think
will.
we should, and you're gonna let Betsy know that everything's on hold and she needs to contact George.
Yeah.
So we can set up a plan because we don't own anything yet. They can't put anything there. Okay.
I'll tell her she needs to talk to George first thing in the morning before we move forward because
Yeah.
she did put it on hold. She informed me late. I didn't get home until like 5 o'clock. Kevin had a haircut appointment in the city. So I didn't see it until after closing, I guess. So she would have to tell them right away not to go marking up things.
Yeah.
All right. And the only other thing you'll see is the police are going to request that a person, Eileen Monaco rather, who lives on Whitney Avenue, be placed service as a crossing guard. We have one crossing guard who will be leaving and one who is going to be unavailable for 2 months, for about 2 months. So we can forward that email to everybody. I know you copied me, but forward that to everybody. I'd appreciate it. And that's all I have.
Anything to be brought to the attention of Commissioner Neary? Commissioner Guardioso is not here tonight. He'll have his report next week. You have some of his reports for the Planning Commission report in the packet tonight. I'll do my report. Joe had to move some vehicles real quick to get out. Do my report real quick. This might be Joe here. You good? Thank you. Yep. Well, ready for you, Commissioner Biacco.
I'll start out with highway. Haven't got any major complaints about snow removal. Got several calls that are mostly.
I just saw the one email that we were all copied on.
I was complaining about Chai Avenue, Larkin Road, all the state roads.
Well, Joe and I, right? Was it me, you, and Joe were copied on the email about this snow? The putt? That one, right? Yeah, yeah. Weren't you on that one?
Oh, yeah.
That one.
They came by late after.
Yeah, yeah. I asked him, I didn't see, did he end up sending any pictures? Yeah, he said I asked him to send pictures because I didn't understand what he was saying. And I don't know what senior citizen is out there.
What happens if somebody does their sidewalks before they do the streets? Yeah, I mean. I was out there at 6:30 in the morning. I don't go out until they come by.
So what happened?
It's
Well,
it's
the
like,
plow knocks some of the, when they plow, it throws snow off the road. They put it
Oh.
on people's sidewalks.
Got it. Okay.
And if they have already done their sidewalk,
Okay. Well, that was a complaint.
understandably
Yeah.
that they're angry, but
Right.
we're gonna plow curb to curb.
Right. You want right because then otherwise then they'll be complaining that you didn't get all the snow off the street.
Yes.
The Friday night into Saturday storms, historically, if we go back, they may not be some of the most significant storms we have. They are the most difficult storms to manage road clearing because you don't have the traffic volume on the roads the next day. So what happens is in a case where you're not getting a lot of sun, it doesn't warm up a lot, and you don't have vehicles creating heat on the roadway, it doesn't get an opportunity to melt what's down there as that little ice that becomes the slush. going back through our records, it does appear that over the years that anytime these storms happen on Friday nights into Saturdays, we do get some feedback from the community about the roads. And candid with you, I don't know any other solution unless there is some type of machinery that we could drive around and physically warm up.
Wasn't that on a state road though?
What's that?
Was that a state road?
No, it was,
Should have been,
Thomas or?
it should have been, Washington.
Washington, yeah.
Mhm.
But I brought this up just to explain that issue. That's what happened.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, but no, I
live
didn't
in-
get any complaints, and I
No,
thought
that
they
was the
did a
only
good
one.
job.
I
Yeah.
got some calls about Chichester Avenue and Lark Road.
Right.
You know, our road. I think HUD have an email about, you know, they didn't do their best job this time. Continue with, highway, the trash study's done. I think everybody's got a copy of it. Several options. Me and George are gonna meet with HUD to see what we'd like to do. I don't know if anybody else wants to be a part of that. You're more than welcome. George should HUD the hand. Bring it to you.
Yeah, that would be,
I mean, but
Yeah.
the guys know
That's
what
right, yeah.
routes are which.
Yeah.
I think,
But, you know,
let them read the recommendations and bring what they
and,
feel.
me and George will meet, we'll, what option we'd like to consider, and we'll bring it to the board. Sewer, reports on file, I think everybody. And if I have, most of any questions, most of my other stuff.
Any questions for Mr. Biacco? Now we'll move on to my report. Which, all reports should be on file next week. I know the emergency management's there. The Boothwyn Town Center, they will be in front of us 7 p.m. next Thursday, the 10th, for the final draft. We were at the Planning Commission meeting this past Thursday night with the final draft that the task force had put together. And there was just a couple of recommendations from the Planning Commission here in Upper Chai. We'll try to make note of that. So try to get this copy to everybody for the final draft for next Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Other than that, it's been, like Nicole was saying, get my wish list together because I know hers with the library, the fire department, COVID, even with the EMS and everybody. These guys are busier than busy. In fact, that's where the chief went tonight. So other than that, it's nice and quiet. Stay safe. Anybody else have anything?
yeah, I was gonna ask George, what was the total amount of, can you give us the total amount again of the outstanding things that the spreadsheet you did it, was there a total amount on there? I know you had mentioned it before.
With interest, right?
Well, the interest will be reduced because it wouldn't be over time.
Yeah, so your total principal and interest due is $1.4 million. Your balance for your principal right now is 1.326.
And the money that you had recommended us paying, that is already something that we have that's separate from the ARPA money.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we need to still come to some type of solution with this because we do have, we are sitting on too much cash in our it's an accounting thing of moving money between bank accounts. So we're over the threshold currently that we are allowed by law to have in our unassigned reserve funds. So we will get an audit finding if this isn't taken care of in the near future. So we got to figure that out. So what we suggested is in moving these numbers around to get us to our percentages, and just in general looking down the line of a way to put some, ease some of the budget for the next couple of years so that maybe some of these things can happen where we allocate a little bit extra money paying off that debt in advance would kind of allow that.
And essentially, you're looking at $900,000 that is budgeted because you have $459,000 of this already budgeted for this. So you're talking, you're not talking about $1.4 million,
Right.
really $1.6 million almost. Talking about $900,000 more than what's budgeted.
So, and I say all that to say that I know that we're discussing the ARPA money and what we're going to do with that. This is a separate issue that I think we need to move on.
Absolutely. And to have a safe nest egg there, excuse me. And I put it in my email that I just don't, with all the wish lists that are going to be coming back and with the monies that George told us we have, we can't have in the account too much, moving accounts around, but I'll be happy with 2 or 3 of the bonds, but not all of them. So you have that, the library, the fire department, stormwater. Joe's got stormwater. I know Mike's got issues off of, I think, Mill Road still, and off of Wood Stream in the back there. There's something that he's never addressed for the last, because we try to do things in little increments. So, and I will sit here and say I'm proud of that because we're not wasting the money and we're getting all this done and we're able to get it done. But I just don't want to throw all this money George is talking about in the whole shell. Because if we are saving so much, and then in another year or two, if you're in the same position, then these bonds could get paid off a lot earlier too. I mean, it's. Right. Mhm. Well, more, absolutely.
Yeah, keep in mind capacity and scarcity of resources. So we are in a year where we know that we've experienced over the past 2 years that there's significantly disruptions to the supply chains. We're having trouble getting resources, right? So, you know, to assume that in the budget year 2022, which we do have a capital budget that's upwards of about 3.5 million. And that's a thing you got to address. We got to move some money into that account because that account is sitting at about 600,000. So to be able to get those projects even rolling, we need to have cash in that account, which was part of that first spreadsheet I sent out last meeting as to kind of how we need to move some money into these channels to be able to do these things. But so scarcity of resources. So what you're doing here is paying it in year 2022. Well, keep in mind, the assumption is that we're still going to get the revenue that we would get in 2023, 24, 25, and 26.
Right.
We would be using to pay the debt. You could allocate that in those years towards those projects.
Right.
Because the assumption that we'd be able to get all these projects done, paid for, and completed in 2022, it's just not feasible.
Right.
I mean, but to assume that we could continue a capital project schedule and keep picking off these projects year after year, this gives you a little bit more of a cushion year over year to know, okay, the money's there. What you don't want to have happen is get the long laundry list of all these things done, and then your resources are all tied up in the things that we, allocated towards here, and then you got no money to do the projects 3 years down the line, and it's.
But isn't there like a certain number we should keep in like capital reserve?
Yeah, so
As long as we don't go below that threshold.
Yeah, absolutely. So the recommendation is, like in our cash, we want to have 3 to 4 months of expenditures in cash, and that helps us stay liquid to pay the bills at the beginning of the year. And then we are allowed to have an unreserved reserve for rainy day fund, things happen, and the allotment, the max is 25% of your annual budgeted expenditures. So we want to have the cash accounts at 25, the unrestricted reserves at 25, and then move the rest of the money into the capital account, pay down the debt, and then our first bond payment comes due in May. We have to have $800,000 cash freed up, ready to roll out of here in May. We would hope that we'd have that through our, taxes coming in and everything at that point. But, anytime we have that big of a payment due, it makes me nervous from our cash levels. So ideally, we'd be setting aside $800,000 to ensure that that payment is ready to roll in.
So can we have, I mean, this is good. This is, I mean, I'm understanding a lot of it. I get where you're going, and I get what Joe says, and like you said, what happens 3 years from now, we don't have nothing to finish the project. Can we get a number so we can move on this next week to say, hey, yes, and I know we have money sitting there for that. You got the ARPA, that's two. We already got some things planned out with that. We've already budgeted for 2022 already for some of this already. So,
Right.
and every year,
And we'd be saving because
we'll
normally
save and-
we would be making those yearly payments. We would be making those payments. So once you pay it off, then you're saving that. And right.
down the road. And then
Yeah.
you'll see the savings 23, 24, and 25
Right.
on most of this stuff. Can we get something where between you and Mr. Neary and to be able to say, hey, we're able to do this? Just what needs to be done first so we're not penalized with a lot of interest, whatever you need. And I understand what you're saying. We don't know what's the taxes are just now going out. You have till May. We got to make sure
Yeah.
we have the threshold there for you.
Well, to save the interest would be just to make the bond payments. So authorize, like this year, authorize paying off.
Right.
Sorry,
From 23 on, because you already had the money for 22, right?
yeah, so we would be paying down paying off all of the
All
notes.
of all four
Right.
notes.
Eric?
Right. And yeah, we've already budgeted.
I
Okay.
mean, as I said, 490,000 has already been budgeted, so we would incur that cost anyway. 900,000, we can sit down, George, next week, early, Tuesday morning, and work up exactly what the percentages are that we need to hold in reserves, what we have to have for, what we're going to move to capital, and what our, 4-month pay schedule is.
Everybody
Sounds
good?
Yep.
Anybody have anything else? Need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
So ordered.
All
All in
righty.
favor, I meant.
Oh, aye.
Aye.